By direct order of His Majesty, King Charles III, effective immediately, the title Duchess of Sussex shall no longer be recognised as a royal designation. Just 19 words, read aloud from the Buckingham Palace press room at 9 a.m. on November 30th, 2025, and the world watched in stunned silence. The British monarchy had taken one of its most decisive, dramatic and controversial steps in modern memory. There was no fanfare, no elaborate ceremony, just a statement, sharp, clipped, unambiguous, delivered by Sir Clive Red, the newly appointed Lord Chamberlain. Behind the velvet curtains with polished language carefully chosen, the implications thundered across global headlines. After months of escalating scrutiny and years of simmering institutional strain, King Charles had finally drawn a bold, undeniable line beneath the name Meghan Markle. But this wasn't just a statement about a title. It was a royal reckoning, a sovereign asserting tradition, reinforcing stability, and defending the enduring ethos of the monarchy. For the first time since ascending the throne, King Charles made the private rift between the Sussexes and the royal family a matter of public record, exposing cracks that had long been kept behind closed doors. Sources close to the palace confirmed preparations for this historic declaration had been quietly underway since late July 2025. Shortly after the Royal Advisory Council convened an internal audit of all title-bearing members, Meghan Markle's name surfaced repeatedly, not for her engagements or charitable work, but for what insiders described as persistent and irreconcilable violations of royal dignity and decorum. The decision wasn't made in isolation. It came after an 18-month review of the Sussexes' post-royal ventures, their Netflix docuseries debut in December 2022, the Spotify fallout, their ghost-written memoir chapters, and most alarmingly, repeated attempts to repurpose royal connections for private, lucrative deals. But it was King Charles's personal intervention that finally tipped the scales. Behind closed doors, he wrestled with the emotional weight of this action as recently as September 2025. He reportedly made private overtures to Harry, phone calls, handwritten letters, even a proposed family summit at Sandringham, but all attempts were either rebuffed or rerouted through legal representatives. It was during a confidential session on October 14, 2025, coinciding with the annual Privy Council review, that Charles signed what aides later referred to as Memorandum 17B, the internal document authorising the removal of Meghan Markle's title. The memo was co-signed by Princess Anne, approved by the Lord Chancellor, and its contents were blunt. If a title holder persists in actions incompatible with royal custom, constitutional precedent, or institutional integrity, the Crown reserves the right to revoke, reassess, or reign. In private, Charles was even more direct. "This is no longer about family," he told a senior aide. "It's about the survival of the Crown, the record of our duty." Unlike previous removals of royal styles, which often required parliamentary approval or delicate constitutional negotiation, this revocation carried a unique and sovereign authority. Meghan was never granted her title by birthright, nor through a royal patent bearing her name alone. As the spouse of a prince, her title was conditional, contingent upon alignment with royal standards. When those standards, according to the king, had not only been breached but commercialised, ridiculed and inverted, the palace moved decisively and without hesitation. There was no need for drawn-out legal wrangling, no debates in the House of Lords, just a sealed order, a broadcast statement, and a quiet note to the College of Arms to update the official royal registry. Meghan Markle was no longer the Duchess of Sussex. Within minutes, social media platforms erupted. Sussex title removal trended across continents. Commentators debated the timing, coming just 2 days before the royal family's annual Commonwealth Unity dinner. American outlets questioned the optics. Royal historians, however, saw something else, a long-awaited reset. "This isn't a grudge," said Dr. Helena Marbury, constitutional scholar and biographer of King Charles. "It's a structural correction. A sovereign correcting the excesses of an anomaly." Not everyone agreed. Allies of the Sussexes quickly issued statements of protest. In a since-deleted tweet, a close associate wrote, "You can strip a title, but not a legacy." Another source from California hinted that legal action might follow. Still, Buckingham Palace remained unwavering. "This is not a punishment," said the Lord Chamberlain. When pressed, he added that this move was an institutional safeguard, as titles within the royal framework carry ceremonial weight, but the king was most concerned about how the title had been weaponized for political, commercial, and personal gain. The PAL dossier, compiled over 6 months, outlined key moments. Meghan openly mocking the royal curtsy on her Netflix special, inviting royal relatives for filmed appearances without clearance, unauthorized use of the Sussex crest in overseas contracts, and repeated misrepresentations of royal protocols during interviews and promotional events. Each violation, officials argued, eroded public trust and distorted the monarchy's role. It was never about being modern, said one Clarence House source. It was about monetization. Long before November 30th, private warnings, discreet glances, and sealed memos had been sent. The most chilling came from Queen Elizabeth II herself, less than a year before her death. Be careful of legacy being traded for spectacle. Back in February 2020, as Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back from senior royal duties, the palace response was deliberately restrained. But documents now public through the Royal Sovereign Archives reveal that Meghan received at least 3 confidential communications, delivered via couriers, outlining her terms of departure. Among those terms was a clause now cited as the legal basis for the 2025 title revocation. Any deviation, particularly if commercialized, was deemed incompatible with continued use of titles derived from royal grant. Meghan's response, once via a US-based attorney, then silence. What followed was not just physical distance, but ideological rebellion. Netflix specials, Spotify podcasts, a children's book with royal references, and ultimately a 6-part series portraying the palace as cold and outdated. Insiders say the December 2022 Netflix special marked the breaking point, not in public sentiment, but in royal resolve. In the series, Meghan mocked royal customs such as the curtsy, indirectly accused the family of emotional neglect, and implied racial undertones in reaction to Archie's birth. One segment, where Meghan performed a theatrical curtsy before giggling at its absurdity, deeply offended Queen Elizabeth. A former lady-in-waiting recalled, "Mocking the fabric of tradition isn't brave, it's ignorant." That same week, aides report, the Queen sent a final personal note to Charles. Contents never released, but the envelope bore one handwritten line. For the record, unease persisted. Rumours never formally acknowledged surrounded Meghan's pregnancies, particularly with Archie. Multiple former staff have since confirmed that internal medical protocols were routinely sidestepped during Meghan's term, leading to suspicion among some senior courtiers. The speculation grew when Meghan later claimed a miscarriage in 2020 and publicly criticised the palace for its lack of emotional support. But no formal documentation was ever requested or offered. Although the palace never spoke publicly, one senior royal aide reportedly described the situation as chronically unverifiable and deeply destabilizing, a subtle, loaded phrase that hinted at doubt and suggested the monarchy may have felt manipulated during a period of national vulnerability and grief. When Queen Elizabeth passed away on September 8, 2022, Harry's delayed arrival at Balmoral only widened the gap. Meghan did not accompany him. The Sussexes' joint statement the following day referenced Her Majesty's warmth, but failed to include any mention of Charles, William, or the duty expected at a post-funeral gathering that never made headlines. Charles is believed to have asked Harry a simple, piercing question. "Are you ready to honour the cost of the path you've chosen?" Harry reportedly remained silent. Charles, heartbroken, would later confide to a close advisor, "I lost my son twice, once to love, once to ambition." One of the most public controversies reignited during this period was Meghan's claim that Catherine, Princess of Wales, made her cry before the wedding, a statement later reversed in subsequent interviews. Catherine never addressed it publicly, but sources confirmed she was deeply devastated by the narrative. Media appearances allegedly included informal invitations to royal family members, including Catherine, for guest segments in exclusive US productions, thinly veiled as reconciliation pieces. Catherine declined through official channels, but Meghan's persistent efforts to pull royal dignity into the streaming market were described by insiders as the final insult, dressed as an olive branch. By spring 2023, something unprecedented was unfolding. Not in Parliament, not in the press, but in Los Angeles boardrooms. The name Sussex had become a strategic brand, divorced from its royal origins, yet trading on global influence. Behind it all was a blueprint drafted with chilling precision. Investigative reporters uncovered a 2021 document titled Sussex Global Holdings LLC, detailing objectives spanning media, production, publishing, lifestyle branding, virtual platforms, and merchandise lines. It was registered months after the Oprah interview and just weeks after Meghan published her children's book. Royal advisors were concerned, not by the enterprise itself, but by the timing, tactics, and relentless pursuit of monetization. Internal palace analysis revealed a disturbing pattern. Nearly every public claim of victimhood by the Sussexes was followed, often within days, by product launches, partnerships, or interviews. For example, March 2021, Oprah interview aired. April 2021, Meghan announced her first book, The Bench. July 2021, publicized miscarriage essay. August 2021, Spotify podcast teaser. December 2022, Netflix docuseries. January 2023, Netflix series. Harry's memoir launched shortly after. This was not grief, it was strategy. One former royal press officer remarked, "They didn't just leave the institution, they set it on fire and sold tickets to the blaze." As Meghan's commercial network expanded, Prince Harry became increasingly isolated. Multiple palace insiders confirmed his communication with Charles, and William declined to nearly zero. By late 2022, he ignored traditional royal briefings, declined formal invitations, and reportedly refused a private meeting with Catherine when she visited the US in early 2023 for a diplomatic forum. Those close to Charles say the king made dozens of personal attempts to reconcile, inviting Harry to Windsor, sending handwritten notes via intermediaries, even reaching out to Meghan directly with offers of mediation. Every gesture was either ignored or rerouted through lawyers. At one point, Charles reportedly told Archbishop David, "Hope it feels like I'm negotiating with agents, not family." The emotional toll was visible. A leaked internal memo from July 2023 described the king as visibly distressed after every Sussex headline. While William, once known for diplomacy, referred to the Sussex campaign as a ghost war against the crown, mid-2024 saw tensions spike following the release of Heart of Invictus, Meghan's Netflix project on Harry's veteran initiative. In response, a small advisory group convened quietly under Princess Anne's leadership, known internally as the Windsor Reset Council. The group, including top legal, media, and constitutional advisors, had a blunt goal: to protect the monarchy's identity in an era of digital manipulation and personal monetization. By September 2024, a draft charter titled Order 17, Custodianship of Royal Identity in a Modern Context, was completed. While not public, sources confirm it included provisions for revocation of titles used commercially, legal disclaimers regarding former members' content, updated definitions of active royal representation in the digital sphere, and a succession firewall for descendants voluntarily leaving the institution. This document, vetted, revised, and blessed by King Charles, laid the legal groundwork for the November 30th, 2025 statement. Though it bore the king's signature, insiders say Princess Anne was the quiet architect shaping its backbone. One royal staffer recalled, "She recognized the damage years before it became visible, preparing for the day Harry and Meghan would not return." For the British public, the unravelling of the royal family didn't come with riots or street scandals. It came through notifications, streamed episodes, and social media spectacles watched in silence. One source close to Queen Camilla said she described the Netflix specials as emotional warfare in 4K. Another royal aide recalled Catherine asking after a brutal clip circulated, "If this is their way of healing, what does harm look like?" By 2025, the question was rhetorical. Harm had already arrived. Subtle systemic waves splintered bonds that once seemed unbreakable. Through it all, King Charles watched from behind the lattice windows of Clarence's house. He didn't scream. He didn't retaliate. He wrote. He planned. He strategized. On November 30th, 2025, the morning after his unprecedented declaration, the British public awoke to headlines that would have seemed unthinkable just a decade prior. Meghan Markle officially stripped of royal title. Buckingham Palace confirms King Charles breaks silence. This was not reprisal. It was protection. Though framed with solemn precision, the the message was clear. The House of Windsor was no longer merely weathering storms, it was redefining its borders. Within hours, social media erupted into polarized debate. Hashtags like #WindsorReset, #MarkFallout, #CharlesDrawsTheLine surged on X and TikTok. While international outlets flooded with praise, outrage and questions, a YouGov poll on December 1st, 2025, revealed 64% of UK respondents supported revoking the Duchess of Sussex title, 18% thought it overdue, 12% felt it vindictive or politically timed, and 6% remained undecided or viewed it as symbolic. In the US, public opinion remained deeply divided. A CNN analyst described the moment as a collision between fame and institution, crystallized in one name, Meghan. Behind the scenes, the palace remained unmoved. "This was never about popularity," said an unnamed royal communications source. "It was about precedent, lineage, and correcting the misuse of a title never meant to become a trademark." By mid-morning, reporters learned Meghan's legal team had contacted the palace's Constitutional Council. Contents were undisclosed, but reportedly addressed reputational harm, financial impact on ventures tied to the Duchess title, and claims of procedural opacity. What startled officials most was Harry's absence from the correspondence. "It's as if they were preparing for this moment alone," remarked a retired royal aide. There was no appeal, no plea for reconciliation, only brand valuation and legal indemnity. By the evening of December 1st, Meghan's team issued a brief press release from Montecito. The Duchess remains committed to advocating for global equity, compassion, and family values. This action by the palace was a regrettable distraction from the real work at hand. The response, polished and precise, did little to ease tensions simmering behind royal walls. Meanwhile, Prince Harry remained silent. Insiders close to Clarion's house confirmed that Charles had written Harry a deeply personal letter days before the public announcement. Sources say the letter was heavy with grief but firm in tone. Charles told him this decision was not about punishment. It was about preserving the integrity of the crown. For generations, one senior courtier revealed, he left the door open for Harry personally, but not for the brand that had grown around him. Prince William's response was even starker. When asked privately about the decision, he reportedly said, "This isn't about who we love, it's about what we protect, and I'm protecting the institution my children will inherit." Catherine remained silent in words, but her actions spoke volumes. On the day of the announcement, she wore a deep blue coat adorned with the Prince of Wales brooch, symbolising both personal loyalty and her institutional role. Later that evening, she attended a children's hospice event, delivering a heartfelt speech on the quiet work of compassion. Observers noted the unmistakable message, less drama, more duty. In the days leading up to the announcement, another subtle shift had quietly begun. Lady Louise Windsor, daughter of Prince Edward and long considered a quiet member of the family, was spotted accompanying Princess Anne on 2 engagements in Yorkshire and Lincolnshire in late November. At the time, it was framed as a learning visit. Insiders now confirm that Louise is being prepared to assume part-time royal duties, largely in the absence of Harry and Meghan. With Beatrice and Eugenie continuing to operate outside full-time royal life, Princess Anne, who long resisted fanfare, reportedly recommended Louise's inclusion in the Royal Transition Plan 2026, a document outlining the strategic redistribution of engagements and patronages following the Sussex and York departures. According to the plan, Louise will take on roles related to education, conservation, and rural youth programmes, and will mentor future royals alongside Catherine. A new title, potentially Duchess of Edinburgh, may be bestowed upon Louise in early 2026 as a gesture of continuity. One advisor summed it up plainly. Where Meghan turned away from tradition to build her stage, Louise is stepping into it, not for herself, but for the country. At the heart of all these moves lies a singular truth. The monarchy is no longer operating through quiet corridors and handshakes. It is adapting to a world of virality, leaks, and brand warfare. King Charles's decision was not just a break, it was a warning shot to future royals who might view duty as a launchpad for personal influence. The next generation, George, Charlotte, and Louis, will grow up witnessing this moment play out, not through whispered court memory, but through digital archives. Their inheritance is not just the throne, it is the narrative itself. It was October 2024, nearly a year before the public announcement, when a discreet gathering took place at St. James's Palace under the codename Project Clarion. At the heart of this confidential assembly was a single agenda: the future of the Sussex designation. A senior constitutional advisor presented what would later be known as Order 17A, a classified royal directive drafted at King Charles's request. The document outlined a full review of hereditary and honorary titles linked to royal branches residing outside the UK, an evaluation of reputational damage caused by commercial partnerships involving royal styling, and legal frameworks for rescinding or reclassifying periods granted by the Crown. It also included a contingency plan for reallocating patronages and international affiliations. The motivation was purely institutional, not personal. Leaked memos reveal concerns from the Royal Sovereign Fund Office over persistent monetization of symbolic assets and unauthorized brand expansion using royal insignia. Order 17A would remain secret for nearly 11 months. Its principal architect, Lady Margaret Combe, a discreet yet formidable figure in royal legal circles, was once dubbed the archivist of Crown law. Sources describe her as loyal only to precedent and posterity. Combe reportedly warned the king bluntly, if the title remains active, it ceases to be tradition. It becomes a trademark. That is not royal continuity, it is commercial dilution. King Charles initially hesitated. Despite growing unease over Meghan's Netflix productions and Harry's memoir Spare, the monarch hoped the storm would pass with time. He instructed aides to monitor, not inflame. However, 3 events reportedly tipped the balance. May 2025, Meghan pitches a docuseries titled Behind the Crown to international platforms, allegedly requesting cameos from select royal family members. The palace was never consulted. June 2025. During a promotional interview in Los Angeles, Meghan was asked about her children's royal titles. Her response, "They'll decide for themselves whether royalty matters," was interpreted as dismissive and detached in royal circles. August 2025. The British Embassy in Washington confidentially reported concerns over Meghan's involvement in a foundation using a modified royal crest, causing diplomatic friction with UK trade and voice. It was then that Charles summoned a rare Privy Advisory Council at Birkhall, his private estate in Scotland. Present were Princess Anne, now Chancellor of the Windsor Guardianship Council, the Lord Chamberlain, Lady Combe, Prince William, and Catherine, Princess of Wales. What followed was a 3-hour deliberation. At the end, Charles reportedly leaned back and whispered, "Then let it be done. For the Crown, for clarity, for my grandchildren." If Charles gave the order, it was Princess Anne who executed the details, quietly activating the Royal Advisory Panel on Constitutional Etiquette, an elite internal council tasked with handling delicate transitions in title, patronage, and precedent. According to internal notes, and emphasised by those close to the palace, this is not about Meghan Markle, the person. It's about the system she circumvented, the expectations she discarded, and the rules she chose to ignore. King Charles assigned the final implementation to Lord Linton Fraser-Dale, a seasoned peer who had once managed the delicate transition during Prince Andrew's patronage withdrawal in 2022. A separate annex within Order 17 recommended new protocols. All honorary titles granted to working royals must now be reviewed every 5 years. Non-residing royals must formally opt in to abide by a royal conduct compact or risk revocation. Future royal marriages must include a symbolic clause respecting the sovereign's cultural stewardship. Catherine, now firmly positioned as the institutional anchor of the next generation, was not a signatory on the documents, but she was the strategic force behind the language. According to an aide who assisted with drafting, her influence was subtle, precise, and unwavering. She insisted on tone, no anger, no revenge, just measured resolve. She wanted the statement to reflect dignity, not retaliation. The result? The final announcement, released on December 1st, 2025, bore a distinct Catherine touch. No direct blame, no explicit mention of scandal, just a clear delineation. The Duchess of Sussex title shall no longer be associated with endeavours not reflective of the Crown's mission, values, or residence. It was firm yet surgical. The most unexpected outcome of Order 17A, insiders say, is the modernization of monarchy protocols. The palace has now created the Windsor Integrity Office, WIO, an internal watchdog overseeing title usage on digital and international platforms. Third-party commercial deals involving family members must comply with the Royal Representation Act, a statute revived and updated from its 1937 version. Moving forward, all royals, working or otherwise, must disclose branding affiliations, foundation financials over £1 million, and public narratives involving royal history or image. While some critics called it Big Brother or overreach, others saw it as essential evolution. Historian Jonathan Rayburn put it best. Order 17A isn't just about Meghan. It's about setting firewalls around the crown in a media age where narrative moves faster than lineage. On the frosted morning of December 1st, 2025, a single velvet-bound folder, sealed with crimson wax and the crown insignia, was hand-delivered to the Office of Heraldic Affairs at the College of Arms, London. Inside lay a 5-page declaration. Concise, deliberate and irrevocable, read at precisely 10:47 a.m. The decree was presented behind closed doors to a select gathering of constitutional officers. With that, the title Duchess of Sussex was formally rescinded from Meghan Markle. No cameras, no fans, no spectacle. The atmosphere inside royal circles, electric with a single sentiment: finality. At 3:15 p.m., the Royal Communications Office released a statement directly attributed to King Charles III. It is the enduring duty of the sovereign to preserve the integrity of the crown, not as ornament, but as obligation. The decisions taken today are not born of vengeance, but of necessity. We recognise contributions made in years past and acknowledge the complexities of the times. Titles are not shields for contradiction. They are vows, symbolic, yes, but sacred. When vows are broken, the symbols must be set down. Palace sources confirmed that Charles wrote the core of the statement himself, longhand, the night before from his private study at Highgrove. His aides urged for softer language. He declined. Unlike prior revocations, such as Prince Andrew's withdrawal from public duties or post-Brexit reallocation of European patronages, this event carried no televised moment, no court dress, no photogenic walkout. Instead, the palace orchestrated a ceremony of silence, a symbolic ritual witnessed by only 4 people: the Lord Chamberlain, the Dean of the Royal Chapel, the Keeper of Royal Titles and Precedents, and the Windsor Privy Registrar. At Windsor Castle's Royal Archives Room, a single gesture sealed the moment: the placement of the Sussex Duchess registry card into the Legacy Vault, now stamped and ceased by royal directive. No folder has exited that vault since 1936, when King Edward VIII abdicated. This too was intentional. What wasn't revealed publicly until now, King Charles also sent a personal letter to Prince Harry, delivered by royal courier to Montecito at 6:43 a.m. California time. The letter, though not released, reportedly contained an affirmation of fatherly love and an acknowledgement of Harry's pain and independence. One line, simply phrased, read, "I did not revoke your marriage. I revoked a mirror that no longer reflected the crown." Reports suggest Harry has not yet responded. A spokesperson for the Sussex issued a carefully worded reply late in the evening. "We remain committed to our work, our family, and our future. Titles never defined them. But for Buckingham Palace, this was never about the Sussex. It was about what defined royalty." As news of the decision swept across UK media and global platforms, reactions were swift, varied, and deeply felt. The Times editorial called it an overdue clarification in an era of blurred boundaries. The Guardian, by contrast, warned that while the monarchy may have preserved its surface, it risks appearing brittle underneath. Across social media, hashtags like #CrownReset, #RoyalReclaim, #SussexNoMore trended globally, while tourists at Windsor continued to pose for selfies and schoolchildren waved flags. A handwritten sign near the public notice board read, "As of December 1st, 2025, the title of Duchess of Sussex is no longer active within the royal household. We thank the public for understanding and ask for respect toward all individuals as we move forward." Signed by Princess Anne in her capacity as Chancellor of the Windsor Guardianship Council. Palace historians already say this will be remembered as a defining moment of Charles's reign, not for drama, but for deliberation. Unlike past abdications or scandals, this was not about exile, it was about evolution. The monarchy, often criticised for inertia, showed it could act not out of sentiment, but sovereignty. And in that act, a door was closed, but another was protected. For the first time in over a century, the House of Windsor formally declared that not all who marry into royalty may remain symbols of it. As the king retired that evening to his study, an aide asked what he planned to do next. Charles reportedly smiled, looked out the window toward the frosted garden, and replied, "Restore what is ours and let time handle the rest." If you found this royal reveal shocking or fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment below.